Good afternoon, instructor. I have decided for my visual interpretation, part one of the assignment is to do a video. And I'm going to be talking about the different types of qualitative and quantitative data collection techniques. So I'm going to start with qualitative. And qualitative research is aimed at gaining a deep understanding of a specific organization or event. So the qualitative research has one main focus, one main target that they're gaining towards. It does not manipulate variables, and that's the meaning emerged from the participants. What that means is, in this qualitative research method, it doesn't, elaborate one part of the research more than the other to persuade the participants to go in a different direction or have a different outcome. It stays on track and it lets the participants, decide on their meaning or what they take or gain from the research. It can also adjust to settings, and it gains for a better understanding at first hand. The researcher must trust their participant and have full confidence. And with this comes their knowledge of knowing the participant. So they will speak the same language as the participant. They will have some type of knowledge of their culture or background. And this just allows them to have understanding of who the person is that they're actually have participated in this research or experiment. And then it also cut back on the researcher being biased, because it just staying true to one track, setting their outcome and not trying to sway and letting the participant come up with their own meaning will cut back on any biased outcome or data collection. Qualitative research methods are set up. The research is set up and the type of methods, observations that may be used at the time that the data is collected. So that means that the analysis of the whole research and the data collection begins as soon as the observation or the research starts. Some problems that was noted in some of the sources that I looked at was that qualitative is a lot more time consuming because it's more data collection. It's not numeric, so it's more written observations that, so like if you do an interview and you're taking notes and you're writing, and then you have to take all this information that you've written down and collect it and then transfer it into something else. So it's very time consuming. You take a lot of data. And also what I found in qualitative is that, like I said, it's non-numeric, so it's strictly written descriptions, documentation, analysis. It emerged from collected data, research questions, all the data that they collected, so it's not coming from a specific statistics or scientific method. It's concerned with people in social situations. And then I mentioned that data is collected through observations of the actions of others. And then also some methods that use qualitative research are action research, case studies, interviews. And then one of those examples would be my action research that I plan to do, and that is to do research on the importance of collaboration in the education field. So whether that be collaborating between a co-teacher, collaborating between the teacher and the parents, or the teacher and the community, or the parent and the community, or even peer-to-peer collaboration and communication. So I just thought that would be a great topic because from working in this field, I feel like the collaborations and the communication, the lack and the consistency plays a huge role in the student's development. So I just wanted to see across the board, the importance of that collaboration. Um, so for the next research method, which is quantitative, and quantitative is a way to examine, observe, and analyze the natural behavior. It is numeric, so data is collected and is analyzed using statistical means, which means that in this research method, they tend to refer back to what statistics show. So, for an example, that I can just make up at the top of my head, statistics show that a lot of African American students that grow up in a non-father household tend to have behavior issues or an outcome of X, Y, and Z. And so this is something that statistics show, and this is something that if they was doing the research on, household children that don't have a father in the household, then they will look at those statistics, and that's a part of quantitative research, and it mirrors the scientific method. So, also what I took from that is that it begins with the point of view with the hypothesis. So what do you think is going to happen from this? And then it sets out to prove or disapprove it. So back to the example I gave on the statistics or children in the household without a father. If I was going to do quantitative research on that, I would start off with a hypothesis, either saying like, I agree, or my hypothesis is that children that are from households with no parent do have trouble in school, show signs of behavior problems, and show problems with social emotional skills. And then I would do research to try to prove that or disapprove that. So after I've done the research, if it shows that, children that have both parents and children that do not have, that father in the household can easily have the same outcome, then it shows that my hypothesis was wrong. Quantitative study of the research methods and are set before observation begins. It specifies the method of observation which may be used and the type of data collected. And then also methods that are used with quantitative research are evaluations, experiment, single subject research, surveys, meta-analysis. So those are some type of methods that use quantitative research, whereas we saw that in qualitative research, the methods that use those were case studies, interviews, action research. So you can see how it's a difference between them, because with the action research, case studies, and interviews, you're doing a lot of data collecting and things like that, whereas in the evaluations and surveys, you're doing observations and data collecting as well, but you're referring back to, a statistical means. So if you're doing a evaluation, and I'm just going to use it as an example just because I've been throughout these meetings throughout this week. So if you're doing an evaluation on a child's behavior or trying to come up with an IEP or 504 plan or things like that, or just to even establish a diagnostic of the child's behavior plan, you're going to evaluate them, ask all these questions, score these, where they range at on the scores, and then you're going to compare that to, what statistics say they should be at. They're below, they're above, to come up with a diagnosis. So I believe I've covered qualitative research and quantitative research. Let me look back at my notes. I don't think I'm missing anything. Gave you the methods that were used in both of them and how they're different and some examples of different research you can use them in. Quantitative research is not as time consuming as qualitative because, like I said, qualitative you're doing a lot of data collection and it's all written, whereas quantitative, the example I gave you of the score sheet, is a lot of numeric and it's being based off something that was already created, or statistics and scientific methods. Another thing with quantitative that I didn't notice when I was looking through the sources and doing some research, that it didn't, qualitative mentioned that the researcher must trust and have confidence in the participants, whereas though when I was reading on quantitative, it didn't mention that. So I would say that with quantitative research, you will also have to trust the participants who you're observing. Always get consent from the family or child, the person that you're observing. Speak the same language as the participant and have some knowledge or background history about them, and as well as their culture, so that you can control the researcher from being biased and you can go in with an open mind and things like that. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I have for my part 1 on the different types of qualitative and quantitative data collection techniques. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I have. I hope I explained it the correct way and in depth and to the best of my abilities. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and ask, and I'll try to answer your questions to the best of my abilities. So that's part 1 of my visual interpretation, and now I will be completing the written part of the assignment for part 2.